China practices an enormous military blockade of Taiwan. The CCP prevents a Hong Kong firm from striking a deal with the US in the Panama Canal, and Trump's Liberation Day tariffs hit Beijing hard. Then more on this week's China News headlines. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell, and this episode is sponsored by Surfshark. Whenever you go online, you really should be using a VPN like Surfshark to cover your tracks and protect your identity. I'll tell you more in a bit. So it's been a busy week in the South China Sea, as United States Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth headed to Asia for his first regional tour. Satellite images showed a fresh Chinese bomber deployment in the South China Sea, which has become the Compton of the East. The deployment took place at the disputed Scarborough Shoal near the Philippines and consisted of two H-6 long-range bombers. Not long after, China also conducted a military patrol in the South China Sea near the Philippines. Meanwhile, not too far away, the US, Japan, and the Philippines staged naval drills. The drills were labeled the Multilateral Maritime Cooperative Activity and were open for the first time to Filipino journalists. During the drill, a Chinese frigate shadowed the warships and attempted to get closer, but was warned off and actually listened. I guess even the Chinese military can make wise decisions on occasion. While he was there, Hegseth visited Japan and the Philippines, reassuring them of the White House's commitment to their security and deterring China. And he put money where his mouth is by announcing that the U.S. will deploy Nemesis anti-ship missiles to the Philippines. That stands for Navy Marine Expeditionary Ship Interdiction System. And no, I don't want to know how much they paid the person who came up with that acronym. The Nemesis precision-guided cruise missiles have a range of 100 miles, can skim the sea surface, and can be remotely targeted and fired at locations around the Pacific, in particular, China. The U.S. also approved the sale of F-16s to the Philippines as part of a $5.5 billion weapons package, which I'm sure China will respond to by accusing them of disrupting the stability of the region, by now being better able to defend themselves from China disrupting the stability of the region. That's not a prediction, it's a spoiler. But undeterred, a few days later, China concluded a 2-day war game around Taiwan after live fire drills in the East China Sea. Taiwanese warships spotted China's Shandong aircraft carrier in the distance, along with 27 PLA aircraft and 21 PLAN warships that surrounded the island. The Straight Thunder 2025A drill simulated targeted strikes and blockades of Taiwan's critical infrastructure and ports. Meanwhile, to add insult to injury, the PLA's Eastern Theater Command posted a video depicting Taiwan's President William Lai as a quote-unquote parasite courting disaster for Taiwan. Yeah, that lousy, democratically elected parasite. Not at all like the benevolent CCP, which has just latched itself onto Chinese society at every level, sucking the lifeblood from the Chinese people to sustain itself. But it turns out China's territorial ambitions aren't limited to Asia. According to U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, wait, is that what he looks like? I've seen too many memes at this point. Anyway, he's warning that there is very strong evidence that China and Russia want Greenland. Man, Greenland is like that girl in middle school no one paid attention to, then puberty hit over the summer, and now suddenly everyone's fighting for her attention. By the way, Greenland, what are you doing tonight? I'm free after filming. After traveling to the territory recently with his wife, Vance said, "We know that Russia and China and other nations are taking an extraordinary interest in Arctic passageways, Arctic naval routes, and in the minerals of the Arctic territories. We need to ensure America is leading in the Arctic." And Vance isn't the only one saying that. One researcher pointed out on X that the Arctic isn't the edge of the map anymore, it's the new geopolitical center, drawing attention to new trade lanes and untapped resources from melting ice. She also pointed to the fact that Russia and China have both been jointly holding military drills near the Arctic basin and working together on economic projects aimed at claiming future resources there. This all might help make some sense of President Trump's Greenland policy. Though it'd be nice if he articulated that, since trying to make sense of Trump's plans is like trying to make sense of a David Lynch movie. I know there was a plan, I just can't tell what it is. And after the break, China is getting reamed by new tariffs. It's bad. Welcome back. U.S. President Donald Trump declared April 2nd Liberation Day and celebrated it by imposing reciprocal tariffs on several countries around the globe, including China, which is being charged a 34% tariff on goods it exports to the U.S. This 34% doesn't include the duties that Trump already imposed on the CCP. Together with his Liberation Day additions, that means there's a total of 54% tariffs on Chinese exports to the U.S., which is likely to have a huge impact on China's already faltering economy. In addition, Trump also formally closed the de minimis loophole that allowed for duty-free shipments of cheap Chinese packages to the U.S. That basically means Temu, Shein, all the cheap Chinese crap getting hawked on Amazon. That's Dunsky. But perhaps most insulting to the Chinese Communist Party is that at the top of the list of countries being slapped with tariffs is Taiwan. It's a bittersweet day for Taiwan. China has stopped a Hong Kong firm from selling Panama Canal ports to U.S.-backed companies, including BlackRock. The Hong Kong firm held ports, one on each side of the Panama Canal, giving the CCP a stranglehold over this strategically important chokehold for international shipping. After pressure from the Trump administration, Panama withdrew from China's Belt and Road Initiative. And it seemed like the sale of the ports to BlackRock would complete a major national security victory for the U.S. But clearly, this fight isn't over yet. According to the New York Post, insiders say Chinese leadership had hoped to leverage the port issue in its talks with the Trump administration, only to be caught off guard by the deal's sudden progress. Might I suggest some light reading for the CCP? China is devastated to learn of all the tragic losses in Myanmar's ongoing civil war. And by that I mean, rebels are disrupting China's rare earth trade, sparking a regional scramble. The Kachin Independent Army, or KIA, seized control of the rare earth mineral belt in northern Myanmar from the junta forces, and hopes to use these rare earth supplies as leverage in talks with China, which publicly backs the junta dictatorship under the guise of stability. Because of this, China has lost access to minerals key for making wind turbines and electric vehicles. The KIA is also imposing hefty taxes on mostly Chinese-operated rare earth miners. And to make matters worse, India, China's biggest Asian rival, has also expressed interest in the minerals. According to 3 anonymous sources, in 2024, New Delhi sent officials from a state-owned rare earths mining and refining firm to Kachin. I feel like every story this week is just China saying, "I'll never financially recover from this." And on that note, China's government bristles at growing ties between the U.S. and oil-rich Guyana. The president said that his country would give Washington preferential treatment over other countries regarding oil trade, in return for a promise of security from the U.S. should China's ally, Venezuela, follow through on its threat to invade and annex this resource-rich region. Ah yes, the age-old negotiation tactic of don't start nothing, won't be nothing. In response, China's embassy made a Facebook post reiterating its close relationship with the country. I assume they made it on Facebook to show they're Facebook official. By the way, if you got that reference, it's time to schedule your first prostate exam. It also said, we honor our commitment with concrete actions. As a matter of fact, China has participated fully at the biggest economic and social transformation in the history of Guyana. Facts and figures speak louder than anything else. Beijing cited its annual trade with the country worth $1.4 billion, along with several infrastructure projects, some of which were secured with Chinese loans. But Secretary of State Marco Rubio had his own opinion on the CCP's infrastructure projects. He said, they don't do a bad job, they do a terrible job. I just came from Guyana, where we had to drive on a road the Chinese built. We almost all had concussions because the road was so bad. It was terrible. I feel like Rubio has been influenced by his time with Trump. It was so bad, it was terrible. Rubio also lambasted China's exploitation of global South countries via loans and their practice of bringing in their own workers, instead of hiring locals to build these infrastructure projects. He also doubled down on the U.S. needing to increase its investment and involvement in the Caribbean and Latin America, where the CCP has been active for a long time. It's Latin America, not Latin China. This isn't an Operation Honeypot update. The United States has enacted a honeypot ban on China. It's now forbidden for government personnel in China to have romantic or sexual relations with Chinese citizens. This is obviously a way to stop the CCP from using attractive spies to get information. But it goes beyond that, because the CCP has also been known to coerce information out of ordinary, everyday Chinese citizens, meaning that any romantic relationship with a Chinese citizen can be exploited. According to AP, the U.S. so-called blanket non-fraternization policy hasn't been publicly heard of since the Cold War, which is just one more reason to believe that we're in Cold War 2.0. Did you know that every time you go online, everything you do is potentially compromised? And that's why the people at Surfshark created a VPN that keeps your internet activity private and secure. If you're not taking active steps to protect yourself, everything you do is being tracked and logged by the websites you visit, your internet service provider, and often by your own government. Using a VPN makes you harder to track. Surfshark has servers you can connect to in over 100 countries, more than any other VPN. That includes a server in the British Virgin Islands, where the law allows companies to not log user data. So stay safe and check out Surfshark. With just one Surfshark account, you can connect as many devices as you want. It also comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Go to surfshark.com/uncensored and use the code uncensored to get up to 4 months extra. The link is in the description below. And if you like YouTube censorship, great, click away now. But if you don't like it, here's how you can subvert YouTube's refusal to notify people about new episodes. Sign up for our free weekly newsletter. The next one comes out in just a few hours. Click below or visit ChinaUncensored.substack.com. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.